Alright, so let's dive into a topic that is like hugely important for understanding astrology, for understanding destiny, for understanding God, for understanding the sky. This is possibly the most important topic that I've come across in reading charts. It's one of those crazy things where it's like if you don't know it, you're really missing out on everything. And this is coming from somebody who I knew about it for a year. I even used it in readings and I was good at using it and I knew what it meant, more or less. But I wasn't exact about it. I didn't know the exact technique, essentially. Oh man, I'm a bit sore-throated today. Weird way of saying that. Anyway, I'm having a weird time at the moment. It's been wild and up and down and shit. It's been great. I love it when life gets like this and gets a bit tough and you start ascending. So what we're going to talk about is the royal stars. Obviously, you will have seen that from the title. The four royal stars: Aldebaran, Regulus, Antares, and Fomalhaut. And I'll put their locations in the tropical and sidereal zodiac, sidereal Babylonian zodiac, down below in the description. And just to keep in mind, this. You will see how these four stars influence you, if they do. You'll see how they influence you in the fixed stars report, which I'm sure if you're watching this video, most of you probably already have gotten, because it is just such a value-packed report, such an important technique. Pardon me. So basically that's what you find there. And the royal stars are really important because they are the stars that make the most famous destinies, as the ancient sages would say. And if you want to see the difference between let's say a common person's chart versus a nobleman's chart versus a wealthy businessman's chart versus the chart of the king or of a great famous artist, this is how you do it. This is how you do it with these four royal stars. And I have done this in practice as well. I've had several people book fixed stars reports and I'm looking at the chart and I'm just like, oh, this lady is an aristocrat. She's part of the aristocracy, the modern day aristocracy, the nobles. And then she got a longer reading with me, and she was very in those upper echelons of society, mingling with the top athletes and celebrities and movie directors and all this stuff out there in America. And there was another one like that as well. I had another chart. Of course, this is quite rare. And the craziest thing was I had these two people book fixed stars report on the same day. And these are the only two charts that I've ever seen with this configuration, which makes nobles. So that was kind of interesting. The other lady didn't get a longer report, at least not yet. So I haven't. I don't know how it's manifested in her life exactly, but I know she is some kind of nobility. And so how did I tell that? How could I tell that these women were nobles? Is actually very, very simple. The one of the royal stars, which is the star of the king, Regulus. This is actually my own star, so probably I'm part of the nobility as well, or I will be. No, there's no doubt that I will be with my chart. Jesus Christ, I'm a bit scared of it actually. What? But so this is the star of the king. And we'll talk more about my own chart as well as a great example actually of that, and I'll make predictions about my own life and things like that. That'll be fucking wild. But yeah, my chart's a good example of that. I've got a few others that are really great examples of this technique. Shia LaBeouf is one. Pablo Picasso is another one. Even Napoleon is pretty good. And what's that other guy's name? Pablo Escobar. He's a great example. These are all very, very potent examples of the royal stars in action. And just the fact that you know all of those names who I'm talking about, you know them all immediately, that tells you the power of this technique. So, okay, so these women had, what they had was Regulus, the little king, in the ascendant or the MC. God, yeah, there's so many things that I forget. You guys have been so brainwashed by modern astrology, I forget that I have to explain some of this stuff. So there's 5 or 6 most important points in the whole chart, and this is where 90% of your reading will come from. Let's say 70% of your reading will come from these 5 most important, or 6 most important places, which are the 4 angles: the ascendant, the meridian, the MC, midheaven, the descendant, the 7th house cusp. Well, it's not actually, but in Placidus, the 7th house cusp, and the Imam Keli, the IC, the lower meridian, and the sun and the moon. So there's the 6. The 2 lights, right? The 2, they're not really the irregular places, but I guess they are. Anyway, and then you can also include the syzygy. I personally believe you can also include the syzygy, which is the full or new moon that came before the birth. So, for example, in my chart, 3 days before, or 4 days before, or something like that, there was a full moon 1 degree away from the star Antares. And definitely Antares is one of my stars. There's no doubt about it. Definitely Antares is one of my stars. So this is another thing to look for. So let's say there's 7 powerful places. The sun, the moon, the previous new or full moon before the birth, and then all the angles. Exactly in the angle. Okay, so how do I know these women were royalty or nobility? They had Regulus, the little king, the star of the king, in the ascendant. One had it in the ascendant, one in the meridian, the midheaven. But not only this, there's a lot of charts that have that. I know a lot of charts that have that. Not only that, they had the moon there as well, in the same degree. And now these weren't exact. So let's say, Regulus is in the 5th degree of Babylonian Leo. Okay, so let's say that somebody was born with Regulus rising on the ascendant. This is the ascendant. My hand here is the ascendant. Regulus is right here. Okay, so already this is a loaded chart. Now we put the moon right there on top of Regulus. I mean, it doesn't even have to be occulting it, but just in conjunction with it. This is at the very least an incredibly famous destiny. But more likely this is the king of the world. This is a great king, a great and powerful emperor who will have dominion over all the known world, almost. You know, figuratively speaking, of course. So, like, this was one of the things that occurred in Napoleon's chart. He had the sun with Regulus near the MC. It wasn't exact, like I've been saying. It wasn't exact. He had a lot of his charts just insane. He had a lot of other stuff in there, which was like just insanely powerful. But he also had this configuration, which is what makes him emperor, the king, Regulus. Anyway, so these women had Regulus rising or in the midheaven with the moon, and it was about 5 degrees away from Regulus in both cases. I'm trying to remember the second one. I'm pretty sure it was 5 degrees in both cases. So pretty far away. Like this isn't like a tight amazing omen where you're like, oh my god, this is absolutely insane. It's very powerful, however. This is what made them aristocrats in the noble high society. So yeah, this is how you can start thinking about it. If you see the sun with Regulus, which is in the first degree of Virgo, tropical Virgo, you see the sun with Regulus in an angle, first house, 10th house, 7th house, 4th house, you got a powerhouse chart already. You literally don't have to look at anything else. This is already a powerhouse chart where the person will be extremely famous, extremely successful, an extreme abundance of good karma in this life is coming. That's what that says. So what else was there? So this was the nobility, right? Nobility. Regulus is the star of nobility and kings. So what about the other four? Now, when you have this configuration with the moon, so what... I'm trying to remember which author it was who said this. It's on like a random page in that book right there. Whoops, not that one. This one, that book. So it would be a pain in the ass for me to find it right now, but one of the ancients says when the moon or the sun is with Regulus or Fomalhaut, and in an angle, so ascendant, descendant, meridian, IC, it makes great and most famous destinies. It makes the most famous destinies. So these women had this in a slightly weaker extent. They still had it, but quite strong. So certain they will be very successful in their life. Also, J.R.R. Tolkien, he had Fomalhaut with the moon in the 7th house. And look at his life. He is most famous, a most famous destiny. You know, again, this is the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings, if you don't know. So, very famous and very artistic. So Fomalhaut is artistic, whereas Regulus is noble, famous, high society. I should have done this on Zoom so I could share my screen, but so already we're feeling the different energy of the stars. Geez, this is going to be a long video. Okay, so we got Regulus, the king, all right? And the other thing, so this is if the moon is there. And this can be quite wide as well. Like this can just be in the same house. You know, Regulus like 2 or 3 degrees from the angle, and the moon 10 degrees from the angle. It can be very wide and it still works. It still makes these very powerful destinies. So what about if you just have, let's say, just one of these places with, in this instance, let's say with Regulus. Pardon me. Pardon. So, to fully understand its power, you have to be quite specific, and it can be quite difficult, actually, to fully know how much influence a star has over a chart, because modern astrological softwares are not designed to show you the real sky. They're designed to show you the planets and kind of give you a bit of mental masturbation, but they don't show you the real sky, which is actually where all the magic happens. So like, that's a whole big topic. I'm not even going to go into it here, but just keep that in mind, that even if, you know, Regulus is in this degree, Fomalhaut is supposedly in this degree, Aldebaran, Antares, etc., that's not where they really are in the sky. That's just one way that they project onto the ecliptic. There are like 4 or 5 ways that they can project onto the ecliptic, and that gets insanely complicated. It's not that bad. I'll probably do a video about it sometime, but you guys don't have the softwares, you need to use it. I need to sort that out. I'll look for one online. There might be something. Yeah, which is kind of annoying, but kind of good for me too. It means you have to come to me to like find out. Okay, so Fomalhaut. Let's move to Fomalhaut. Okay, so Fomalhaut is the star of artistic spirituality. And keeping in mind that the 4 royal stars, each one is related to a sacred degree of the zodiac, which is a spiritual degree. I've got a whole lecture about that on my website. It's like the first, it's like right there. I think you can get it for free actually if you use the coupon code Hermes *3. Hermes times 3, Hermes Trismegistus is the meme. So that's also part of this. So they're spiritual as well. They're not just powerhouse stars, they're also very spiritual. So Fomalhaut. So let's look at Tolkien's chart. I've got a whole long video about it. It's an incredible chart, and honestly that video was pretty fucking awesome too, if you ask me. Pretty amazing piece of astrological work there. But he was born when the moon was setting. The moon was going down, and the moon was going down with Fomalhaut, very close, like 4 degrees from Fomalhaut or something like that. So the moon is with a royal star in an angle. So this will be an extremely famous destiny. We know that. And it was setting. So this actually shows us when will this great fame find the native in his old age. In his old age, it will find the native. And that's exactly what happened. He only became extremely famous when he got older, and then even more so when he died. After he died. So we can tell a lot. And Fomalhaut, it's artistic, spiritual, divine inspiration. I actually know a really great tarot reader who's quite successful who has this. She's going to do some crazy stuff. She has the sun with Fomalhaut in the IC, and I'm looking at the chart. She doesn't even know that I've seen this. I haven't told her. But yeah, I'm just like, yeah, she's going to be fucking so successful and so famous. Like, it's crazy for her psychic abilities, spirituality, right? Artistic spirituality, the divine inspiration, the water of life. Fomalhaut is like the water of life that enters your consciousness straight from the supreme being, the deity, the God, the light, this guy. So, great, okay, so we know a bit about Fomalhaut. Regulus' leadership, fame, power and influence. It's praise from people. It's kingliness, nobility, being magnanimous and generous and loving and open-hearted. This is Regulus. Fomalhaut is artistic. A little bit, how to describe Fomalhaut? They can be a little neurotic. Like a little, very quirky, very, very quirky kind of star. Well, it's not even the star, I don't think that's quirky, but it's just the personality type of that sign and everything, Aquarius. It's very quirky and a bit neurotic. Oh god, this is gonna be such a mess. At least I'm doing it the same way my ancestors did it. They basically, in the ancient times, they just sort of took all the information and just threw it into the book, and didn't organize it very well. They did a bit, but more the organization's been done by modern scholars, and they didn't organize it very much, so that you had to read the whole thing to learn. You had to be really dedicated to learn everything. You couldn't just come and be like, okay, let's just click through and like, I want to know one thing. It's like, you'll never know the signs of the stars if that's your attitude. If you want to know just one thing at a time, you never will. You'll never know the signs of the stars, I'm afraid. That's just the truth of it. Yeah, you need some real dedication. So yeah, you're gonna have to watch the whole video to get all this. Sorry, it's a tangent there. So let's describe all the royal stars first, and then we'll go more in detail. So we've got done Regulus, Fomalhaut, Aldebaran, the eye of Taurus. This is the bullseye. This is where we get the term bullseye, because it is the eye of Taurus, the eye of the bull. This, Hermes says, this is the luckiest star, the most fortunate of the fortunate and the richest of the rich. Whoever has this star will be the richest of the rich and the most fortunate of the fortunate. Actually, I have this star a little bit. Granted, it's not that powerful, but I do have it. It's like a couple of degrees from my sun. So yeah, powerful star, and it's a wealth star, the most important wealth star. Yeah, I mean, that's, what else can I say? It's wealth and beauty, wealth and love, wealth and sex. He says that these people will have lots of money, many estates, many possessions, great wealth, and will be more beautiful than anybody, and their beauty will be famous across the whole earth. And they will have many suitors, and they will have to restrain themselves. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, they will have to restrain themselves, and what was the other thing? Yeah, I think that was it. They'll have to restrain themselves from all their people who want to have sex with them, basically, who want to marry them. This is Taurus, the sensual love, abundance, sensual abundance, and material abundance as well. I know quite a few billionaires who have this star Aldebaran loaded in their chart. Like, I'm pretty sure Elon Musk. God, there was some very specific thing with his chart. I can't remember. But he was born exactly he was born at sunrise, exactly 7 days after the rise of Aldebaran. And this proves to me how important these sacred numbers are. When I was first learning this, I just thought, yeah, whatever, it's just a number, 7, 12, like, I know they're divine and they have this divine thing, but that's never going to affect the material world? Wrong. It does. It obviously does. If you're born on the exact day of the rise of Aldebaran, or 7 days or 12 days after, the 7th day or the 12th day after, those 3 days, the exact rise, the 7th day and the 12th day afterwards, the first, obviously the exact rise has the most power, and then the 7th, let's say 90%, and the 12th 85% or 80%, something like that. So they're loaded with the power of the star. Also, who else is there? Ross Perot, Bill Gates, Bruce Springsteen. One of my personal clients is Aldebaran in the ascendant. Actually, a couple of them do. And the one... yeah, there's some interesting research actually that I have to do about that, but yes, they're definitely very beautiful, and one of them is very rich, and the other one is not rich yet, but she's very young, so we will see. I have my theories, I have my working theories about that, because her chart had a lot of, sorry, this is a tangent, but her chart had a lot of indicators of like being born into a wealthy family, and I asked her and she said no, I wasn't, and I kind of suspected that as well, because now I have to like explain this and it's going to get super technical, but Jupiter was in the midheaven in a day chart. So if Jupiter's in an angle in a day chart, this is the silver spoon. This is the high society, being born into the high society. However, her Jupiter was in Capricorn. And I have noticed this, that when people have Jupiter in Capricorn, even if it's in an angle, it doesn't have any power. Or it has much, it doesn't manifest itself. It's almost like that, especially in that sign, the influence of Saturn restricts it. But more important than that is in that cycle, when Jupiter's in Capricorn in this era, Capricorn Sagittarius, Jupiter is very, very weak because he is in the winter solstice. His heliacal rise is close to the winter solstice, and this is far from his throne. If you know the Exaltations video, the throne of Jupiter is the summer solstice. So when he's on the winter solstice, he's as far from his throne as he can get. He has the least amount of power, and this is why the Exaltations are so powerful and so important. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. And she also had an invisible Venus, and Venus is what rules Aldebaran. So yeah, this is what I suspect. I don't see that she will not receive that. Like, I know that chart with Aldebaran and Antares in it that she had is very loaded, and at some point she will be very wealthy and famous. Yeah. Now this text, this ancient Greek text, it says when you have the moon with Aldebaran in an angle, it makes the greatest businessmen, the wealthiest businessmen who handle the affairs of kings, and yeah, that's basically it. It just makes people fucking super rich. What else is there? Antares, the last one, Antares. So this is actually the most complicated one, the one that's the most difficult to kind of grasp. It's more of an energy that you have to get used to understanding, because Antares can be very unpredictable. It's very martial, this star. Very, very unpredictable. It can make really, really good people, like superheroes, and it can make really, really evil people, like supervillains, as we've already seen, Pablo Escobar, right? I mean, he had some weird spiritual stuff in his chart too. Both of the malefics were really powerful, so like explains a lot. And he had Antares with the sun in the MC. Exactly. So the king of the underworld is Antares, and that's what Escobar was. Whereas, something like the sun with Regulus in the MC is the king of the world, and this is Napoleon. And then the king of the artists is Tolkien, and then the king of the rich men. I haven't even found a chart like that yet, but we will. So Antares is the star of the rebel. It's the heart of Scorpio, of the Scorpion. It can be criminal, as we've seen. It can be criminal. It doesn't care about societal restrictions as such. It's a very ruthless star, relentless, military, dangerous, risky, brave. Yeah. Like a great example, like my teacher has Antares, and when his stars became active between the age of 26 and 27, which is when they become active for everyone, he escaped the communist regime in Bulgaria illegally. I think he smuggled himself out in the roof of a train or something like that into Germany, so that he could go study astrology, seeking the truth. So it's very dangerous. Like, he could have been killed, he could have been shot for that. It's very risky, military, martial, restless, ambitious, all this kind of stuff. Of course, I actually have that star as well with my syzygy, and that's why I'm such a grumpy bastard, That's why I like to give people a hard time so much. Regulus does as well a little bit, but not as much. Regulus is much more magnanimous and much more kingly and noble, whereas Antares doesn't care. It gets down in the dirt, gets dirty, and nails teeth and everything else it uses to fight. So very, very intense star. And so how to use them, right? So now we got a feel for each one, how to use them. So remember let's say our 7 most important places: sun, moon, angles, and syzygy. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to end this soon. I'm getting a bit sniffly. So remember our 7 most important places. Now, if any of these positions are in exact conjunction with a royal star, any one, Antares, Aldebaran, Regulus, Fomalhaut, it doesn't matter, any of them, if they're in exact conjunction, I mean exact conjunction, let me say it again, exact conjunction, this is what makes a most famous destiny. Yeah, this is what makes extreme fame. So, Picasso, he had the moon, I think it was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes away from Antares. So this is what I mean by exact conjunction. Like, I mean exact. Shia LaBeouf. And keeping in mind, both Picasso and Shia LaBeouf, the rest of their chart is basically just a tragedy. Sorry to say it. They're basically just tragedies. But because they have these royal stars, it lifts the native above everything else, into extreme fame. So Shia LaBeouf has Regulus 10 minutes as well, 10 minutes away from his descendant. So, boom, extreme fame. Now, I think there might be some others. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I actually have a friend who's got the sun 1 minute from Regulus in the 5th house, and I was just like, okay. I went back to that chart and I was like, all right, I think I know what's going on here. Like, I told her about it, and it was just like, yeah, and it probably became active around like this age at first, like what was it, like 14 or 13? I think it was 13. She was like, yeah, that was when I started like this big artistic project that I made and all this stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting. We'll see how she goes. And for myself, I have Regulus as well. I did this calculation very precisely the other day because I finally found out how to do it. It is... So my ascendant is at 4 degrees and 12 minutes of Leo, Babylonian Leo. Regulus is at 5 minutes and 5 degrees and 5 minutes of Leo. So it's almost a degree away by a simple projection onto the ecliptic. However, the horizon arcs. There's an arc to the horizon, and this is because of the rising, the way that the stars rise over the horizon. So, in the southern hemisphere, the southern constellations are visible how the hell does that work? You know what? I haven't even figured out how to fully explain this properly yet. But the sky appears differently in the north and south hemisphere, and and so the horizon arc is different. The horizon arc's got nothing to do with the curve of the Earth. It's simply to do with how the stars rise. Yeah, it's a little bit conceptual. I can't explain it here. I don't even, like, I get it just about in my mind, but I have no clue how to explain it to anybody else just yet. So my horizon arc, so Regulus is very close to the ascendant already, and my horizon arc's like this, and Regulus is, so let's say, so the ascendant's here, Regulus is here. Got that? So it's a little bit off, a little bit away, and the horizon arcs like this, and comes closer to Regulus as it arcs down. And I did the calculation for this, and I think it was something like Regulus was 20 minutes away from the east horizon. So not the ascendant. It's not the ascendant, it's the east horizon. This is a whole other topic that I have to go into more in depth, but this is very, very interesting stuff. But yeah, so this is a very, very close conjunction between the royal star with an angle. So what do we predict from this? I mean, I've already told you, we predict extreme fame, one way or another. So that will be very interesting to see, to unpack as my life goes forward. We'll see how it all unravels. And I've met, like, a lot of you guys have royal stars in your charts as well. Quite a few of you do, and they're stronger than you think. Like, one lady had Antares, I think by simple projection, it was 1.5 degrees away from the MC, which is still powerful. It's still very powerful. It gives a very restless life with lots of ups and downs and intense experiences and conflicts and, you know, deep experiences. But somebody who is, like, really knows their shit, like, really knows the truth. She is this incredible psychic. She's like one of the few real psychics I've ever met whose psychic abilities actually connect her to the truth rather than just to, you know, what's going to happen in the future, but to the truth, which is far beyond any of that child's play. Anyway, so she has Antares, and then I looked closer because the MC arcs, it has an arc as well, and Antares is very far off the ecliptic, and it ended up being only 50 or 45 minutes or something away from Antares, so it's even stronger. I wouldn't necessarily class this yet as an exact conjunction, but this needs to be researched more. But it's very powerful nevertheless, and Antares is a star of leadership and kingliness. So yeah, very powerful stuff going on there. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. Look for these exact conjunctions when you're looking for extreme fame. Of course, the star will have an influence quite wide of, let's say, even plus minus 7 degrees. Very, very wide. Obviously, the further away you get, it gets much weaker. But that doesn't mean that it becomes weak. It just means that it's much weaker than it could be. You know, so instead of, you know, this sort of extreme fame of Shia LaBeouf, you have, you know, success and leadership in your work life from Regulus being 7 degrees away from the ascendant or something like that. So yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. 3737. Peace.